Hey folks, welcome back, and I'm very excited to have you here today listening to this particular episode because I'm joined today by my friend Mark Herrmann, who I actually met first in person down in Peru, where Mark came to an ayahuasca retreat with us. He then went through our Mindful Microdosing program to help out with his integration process. And as you'll hear as we get into this episode, Mark's been through so much in his career. He's a recently, very freshly retired firefighter, and he essentially developed a nickname within his unit for being the guy who somehow was constantly surrounded by death. Just constant, horrible, horrible calls that he was responding to, on top of some significant childhood trauma. He talks about losing his father at the age of 6. And then on top of some significant trauma that occurred within his own family to his own sons. And Mark actually drops a bit of a bombshell on me, revealing something that he only realized about himself within the past month. And this is, you'll see my reaction in real time the very first time that I ever hear about this from him, as somebody who knows a good bit about the shit that Mark has been through, again, from facilitating this ayahuasca retreat with him and having him go through our microdosing program. So, honestly, I'll leave it there. Let's get into the episode. Enjoy this one as much as one can, and I'll see you on the other side. And I was gonna run downstairs and grab one of my Mental Joe shirts to throw on, but Sita is like almost at her nap time, and so if I went downstairs and she spotted me and then I went back upstairs, she would just start crying for the next 20 minutes. So I have to just sometimes hide upstairs when she's in a particular mood. Not in a mood, but she's tired. She's a year and a half old. So you understand that very much.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Man, as I was saying before we started, dude, it's good to see your face.
You too.
We've only seen each other face to face one time, really, in Peru.
Yeah.
Which was what, a year and a half ago now?
Yeah.
That trip? Or
Yeah,
little,
well,
maybe just a little bit over a year ago. Yeah.
Just over.
I knew to correct myself because I've gotten the notifications on my phone of hey, do you remember this? And it's us going on the boat across the Laguna and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely we'll get up to that point, but I don't want to start there. I actually kind of want to rewind a little bit, and I'll give an intro. I'll talk about kind of your experience as a firefighter and a dad and everything. But the more I've learned about this stuff, this stuff being PTSD, trauma, healing, plant medicine, all that kind of jazz. Pretty much every time it kind of traces all the way back to someone's experiences as a kid. And it's something I used to roll my eyes at so much because I was I was never beaten as a kid. I never went to bed hungry. So I was I don't have childhood trauma. That's for other people. And then come to find out, no, that's actually where all of this starts. So Can you talk to me a little bit, what led you down the career path that you even went down? What were the experiences, what were the influences as a kid that molded you to become a firefighter, EMT, everything else that you're up to now? But what set you down this path?
Man, real quick, my backstory is, my dad passed away when I was 6 years old, and I grew up a good portion of my younger life without a father figure. So it was just my mom. She was a school teacher. We were struggling to make ends meet. I remember the house that we were originally living in when my dad was alive, we had to hurry up and get rid of everything so that we could move and downsize and do all those things. And I just kind of, looking back now, I have a lot of respect and I understand the process in that. But when you're a kid, your whole world gets uprooted and you don't understand. Even, at 6 years old, I didn't really understand what was happening. And it didn't settle in until we moved out of the house, I think. And that was when I really started to look back at my life. Even at 6 years old, I had a memory, and I think my memory is pretty good just because I did have something like that happen at a younger age, so I really held on to the years prior to that. So even now to this day, my mom's I can't believe you can remember some of these things, but I think it was a glimpse, right? And it just lets you know how impressive our brain and our body is and things that we hold on to. So as time progressed, I would always attach myself to my friends that had dads that looked like a good father figure, a good male figure in their life, people I was, even at a young age, I was analyzing those things, trying to surround myself with that because I lacked it. I always grew up in a loving household, like you were saying earlier. I grew up in a loving house. All I remember is love. I don't ever remember my parents fighting. I never got yelled at. There was never anything physical. It was just that initial spark of that. So then you're looking for yourself and you're finding, and one of the guys, oddly enough, this is like a full circle thing, but one of the guys that lived next door to my buddy was a firefighter at the time, and I was really young, and I just remember him coming home and he was always out front with his kids playing in the grass, and somehow that appealed to me. Like I always wanted that family feeling because I feel like mine got cut short in a way. So fast forward, we get into high school, and I just started feeling like I was just enjoyed helping people. And we can go deeper into that as we progress through this, but the realizations I've had with that. But in high school, I don't know if you had to do this, but we'd get on the computer, you'd take this test, you'd answer all these questions, and firefighter always came out at the top. It was like firefighter, military, just boom, 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 all the way down. And then a little bit later, my neighbor across the street was a firefighter. He's like, hey, you should come check this out. Road. And then, man, I was hooked. I just, that opportunity, that camaraderie, that family, that thing that I felt I lacked for a good part of my life, that was really appealing to me. So I started volunteering, dove into that. And then I got to see all the other aspects of how you could help and how you really make a difference. And that's what steered me into it.
That's pretty cool that that was like kind of laid out for you at a fairly young age. I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
struggle just with having no idea what they're supposed to be doing with their lives. But
Right.
dude, talk to me some more about losing your father at that young age. Like, what was your understanding about that when you were a kid? Like, did you really have any idea what that meant or what was really going on?
I didn't. I remember the day clear as day, but like it was December 21st. I remember sitting up at like the bar area where like the bar stool area where our kitchen was, and I remember the phone ringing and my mom picking up the phone, and I just remember the phone dropping to the floor, and she just started crying. Our next door neighbors were both sergeants and lieutenants for the police department here in Arizona, and my mom went over there, and I just remember they had a squad car at their house, and I remember driving to the hospital and that. I remember seeing palm trees. Like it's crazy all the things that my mind was grabbing onto. I remember getting to the waiting room where we were at the hospital, and my half brother was actually living with us at the time. And I remember him losing it, punching a hole in the wall, and I still didn't understand what was going on. I did not know what was happening at that time. I just figured we were driving in a car. I didn't know why we were at the hospital. Like, I don't recall anybody ever telling me anything at that moment. And then I just remember when it set in, it was probably about 2 days after. I just remember not being able to see him one last time, and my mom didn't want me to remember him in that state. And I have respect for that now, but there's the other part, right? Like we all seek some kind of closure in something. That's how we feel we move on. That was like what I was attached to even at that age. And I remember as a kid driving, sitting at lights and looking in a truck that was like his work truck, and it was like I could see an image of him. So I just thought he was still there. I just thought he wasn't living with us. Like I guess like for me, it probably would have thought that my parents were divorced, and I didn't understand. I think it probably took a good 4 or 5 months before I realized when like he was not coming back, and it really settled in. And then I think it really started to settle in with my mom, and we tried all kind. I mean, she did the best she could with what she had. We didn't have family out here. All our family was in Illinois. We had some in Texas, but when someone passes, that time passes on. Like you can only be there for so long because everybody's lives continue to keep going on, and ours just kind of froze still. And I felt like for man, probably a good 2 to 3 years, it was just really stagnant for me. I think I was still trying to process what had happened, and then as I got older, and then when you start coming into puberty, like you have everything figured out, and then there's all these things that you don't understand. There's the emotional regulation, and my dad was huge with that stuff. Like even as a young kid, I remember having conversations with him, and like our routine every weekend would go get donuts, he'd get a coffee, and he would just talk to me about life a little bit. And honestly, I think just those conversations and holding on to that was why it turned out the way I did. I mean, I could have gone a totally different path. I mean, I hung out with some of the wrong people for a little bit, but I remember some of those conversations as a kid sticking with me and moving
Really?
forward. Yeah, dude, it
Yeah.
was crazy. And
And
then like looking back now that I'm a father, man, I look back and I'm like, hope I'm instilling those things because we just never know what the next day holds, right?
yep. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say you're making me want to go tell Sita some things. It's
Yeah.
crazy how much they understand from such a young age
Oh
too.
man. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Crazy.
Like my first memory, probably honestly, like I can remember. I asked my mom. She said I was 2 years old, and I like from that point on. When you start thinking back in life, you're like, wow, I remember most of my life from this point on. Like mine was 2 years old. I remember a specific time, and from that point on, I just
Really?
started remembering everything,
Wow.
and it was all attached to the moments with my father. So
So, I spoke to Wiz Buckley the other day. I'm not sure if you
mhm.
know him at all.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and he was sharing with me because he lost his sister to a drunk driver when he was a kid. He was maybe 13 or so. I could be getting that wrong. One of the
hmm,
things that he talked about the most actually was not just the trauma from that, but how that took his parents from him because they were never the same after that
yeah,
situation.
absolutely.
And so, did how did that kind of play out for you, like as you got older? Because it sounds like your dad fortunately instilled a lot of positive things in you while he was still there. So maybe his absence
Yeah,
wasn't felt as strongly as it otherwise might have been. But
yeah.
what uh what were the kind of ramifications for you growing up? How did that really affect you, like emotionally, or were you aware of any of that until you started getting into the healing work much later as an adult?
Man, I wasn't. I looked at things. And I'll tell you a couple. And I'm not trying to sell my mom down the road. Like I said, we all do the best. We're all just trying to figure it out. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what medicine, what counselor, what friends, mentors you have. You just figure. We're all just trying to figure it out. So this isn't anything against her, but when I was younger, I thought going to the bar and hanging out till they shut down at 1 in the morning, and then figuring out how we were getting home from there was the normal. And I'm 7, 8 years old, and that was how my mom was dealing with things. And I think there was a point where she started to see how much it was affecting me. And I remember going to this therapist and him asking me these questions. And I'm like, dude, I don't need, again, this was still in that time when I was still trying to process what really had happened. And I couldn't explain how I was feeling. You put it into category like men in today's society, like we're only taught a couple emotions, right? It's like most emotions, you just bury it. You carry it, you bury it, and you show anger more common than most. And most of the time, you're just quiet. You're always going for that
Yeah, we're
dopamine.
we're allowed to feel hunger and anger. Those are the appropriate
Yeah,
feelings for a man.
right. So all those other feelings, I wasn't building relationships with them, and so when I would be at the bar watching my mom, or my mom would be dating a guy, and a guy would come. I remember when I was probably 9 or 10, and a guy showed up intoxicated to our house. And I remember at that age, I had to push someone, a grown man, out of my house. And that was the moment. Like then, I was like, I told my mom, I'm like, no more. I was like, not here, like not in my house, like that. I was like taking the male role at 9 years old. And looking back now, when you start the healing, you're like, holy cow, like we were in a different time. I mean, I think there was a time, same bar, same place. I remember driving us home at like 10 years old, and we lived like, yeah, yeah, man. Like it was wild because my mom was not fit to drive at that point. Like I remember somebody putting her in the passenger seat of the car and me getting us home, and we were lived like 4 miles away from this bar. Yeah. And yeah, dude. So I mean, it's like, and
That
I'm
means
sure
that
there's
that other person was like, yeah, this 10-year-old's got it.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm sitting there. Luckily, like I started puberty early, so I was taller. So I'm like driving, but and it's 2 o'clock in the
That's so
morning, so that was
crazy.
my other saving grace, right? There's like nobody on the road. But yeah, I
Fuck,
mean that's
man.
just one example. I mean there's a bunch. We all have them, and those are our life's about lessons, and
Yep.
those are the ones that I can see and look back. So
Man.
that's a big one. Yeah.
Well, it's super interesting for me hearing about this because we'll get into this, but you shared a lot with me when we were in Peru about what you were
Mm,
there to heal. And
yeah.
unless I've just forgotten a majority of these things, it primarily wasn't this kind of stuff. We talked a lot
No.
about your
Yeah.
career and the things you saw there, and we talked about some things that happened to your family, which we can get
Yeah.
into.
Yep.
So did you feel like you were carrying a lot of like weight from this,
You
or
know,
does this
it.
kind of just go ahead?
Yeah. Now I do, but back then I didn't. I just looked at life
That was
being kind
life.
of that way. I was like, this is
Yeah,
life. Like, and I
yeah,
didn't have any spiritual connection. We didn't have a religious background. My parents, my dad specifically was like raised in the Catholic group. So I remember even that was another thing that my mom tried with us. Like, I remember going to a Catholic church for probably about 2 months. And one of the times, that was another experience I had. I was in Sunday school and I started asking questions, trying to understand death and like, is my dad coming back and all these things. And I asked so many questions at a young age that I think were too much, to the point where they're like, hey, this is a little more than we're ready to take on in a Sunday school setting. So that came abruptly to an end too. So I just thought, oh, well, this is just life. So if it doesn't work out, you just go to the next thing, and it just continues to keep going. And then we get into the healing process, and then you really start unpacking everything, right?
Is your mom still around?
Yep. Yep. We
Yeah.
still live. She lives 15 minutes from me. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, before we get to the healing work, let's talk about the career. Because, dude, you
Yeah.
shared some fucking gruesome things with me when we were
Yeah.
together in
Yeah.
Peru. And
Yeah.
by the way, man, I almost feel like I need to give people a disclaimer when they come on my podcast, because I usually spend the entire time talking about like all the worst parts of their life and their story. But
Yeah.
I do that because it's so easy. I think it's so easy to look at someone now and be like, "Oh, Mark is killing it, right? He's super happy. His family's happy. He's got all these cool things going on." And you hear like, "Oh, he went to Peru. Like that must be nice for him." Or like, "That's cool that he was able to do it, but it wouldn't work for me in my situation." So that's
Hmm.
why I always try to pull these parts out, because it's the most relatable thing, and to show
Yeah.
somebody like, bro, you lost your dad when you're 6, you had all this other horrible shit happen that we're about to talk about, and now you are killing it and you are doing really great in a lot of ways objectively,
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
not because you just had it easy this whole time. So that's my disclaimer slash apology for all the questions we're about to get into, Mark.
No,
But
I'm here for it.
so talk to me about the career, because one thing that you said has really stuck with me, and I've repeated this a number of times now. The way that you put it was basically that your job as a firefighter and as an EMT, anytime that you're getting called, anytime that you're interacting with somebody, it is the absolute worst day of that person's entire life.
Hmm.
And you're just rolling up to the scene trying to figure out how to help and how to take care of them.
Yeah.
So just that alone has to fucking weigh on you, that your only interactions with people are just at their absolute worst. So are there any things that stand out from your career, like maybe just bad stories or things that particularly weighed on you, or maybe things that stand out in your mind as a sort of turning point in your own journey? Anything like that?
Yeah, man. Oh gosh, it was funny because well, it's not funny, but I was thinking about this, coming into this today. So when out here, it's really competitive to get on the fire department. So when I tested there, and we were the largest hiring class for the city that I worked for, and they hired 21 people, but I tested against 3,600 people for that test.
Wow.
And yeah, and prior to that, when you're younger, you're 18, 19, you start getting a direction, you're going into that part of your life where you're starting to try to figure a lot of things out. So I felt like I was kind of ahead of the game because I had an idea of what I wanted to do. It interested me. So I started volunteering time, and that's kind of what you got to do. You got to do your time, especially because I didn't have any family. I knocked on the door after that to the city that I was at to get volunteering. And they had what was called this crisis response van. And for 2.5 years, I volunteered on that, along with being a cadet for the department, doing other stuff on the trucks interactively. But that crisis van, would only go to bad calls. And we went across the valley, like we weren't restricted by boundaries. So on that, like I started getting exposure to minimum. We would have 4 calls a day, and those 4 calls all had to do with deceased people. I mean, it didn't, and it could have been a spectrum from someone just simply falling asleep and never waking up again to decapitation. Like it was across the board. Yeah. And it was from, there was no barrier. It was like from infant to elderly and everything in between we went on.
And
So
you're in high school at this point?
I just gotten out of high school. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was
Damn.
20, almost
Okay.
20 when I started that.
Not
Yeah.
the average 20-year-old's experience.
No, and I
And
got
so
hired at I got hired at 22. So that just in that amount of time, I mean, there's probably 300 plus calls in there of just deceased, and from beautiful passing to horrific. How can something like that happen to an individual?
I imagine just that weeds out a lot of people who think that they want to do this, and then they're confronted with the
Yeah.
reality and they're like, I can't, this isn't for me.
No, and I think the reality of this, and people in military, PD, hospital settings, anything like public servants type, I don't think that you realize what comes with it and the trauma that lies in it, because it's like most jobs. You only hear the good things, right? So it's like, oh, these are all the perks of the job. Like, these are the things that happen. This is your schedule. This is how all this stuff lays out. And I don't want to take anything away from the job. I have a ton of growth and a ton of lessons and things that I learned and maturity. And I created I have a family now during that process of that career, but I didn't understand all the bad stuff. I saw it, but I think it was what happened to me at a younger age and how I processing things. I was just like, that's just life. Like, we don't get to pick that. And we don't in a certain way, but what we expose ourselves to and what the profession we choose is a big deal now, because looking back now, man, I don't wish that on anybody. Like, the average person, I think we were talking about this the other day, and I think the average person sees maybe three people in their life that have passed, and not in a casket funeral home setting, like just it organically. I'm seeing that, every single day on the volunteer portion of it. And then we get into all these other things. So my last name's Herman. So in PD code is 901H. So they started calling me 901 Herman because I just was someone that was a black cloud in my career. Like other medic partners, preceptors, all those people, when they saw me come in, they're like, oh crap, man, like this is going to be a day. Because it was. I just, for
Not
some reason, I was a magnet for it.
901H being the code for like there's a deceased person here.
Deceased person. Yep, yep. And most of the time, it's you never know what that deceased portion of it is. Like, prime example, I was on probation, and one of the first calls I ran, I moved to my second rotation, so had done 3 months. I was at a slower station, then they moved me to another one, and the first day I was at that station, I got called to a hanging. And when I showed up at that hanging, it was one of my friends who had taken his life over a relationship issue. And I was the one that had to pick him up, and I had to bring everything together in that moment and hold my composure. And on top of that, that friend was a bunch of other friends that were within the fire department. And I actually just went to this, my buddy's dad's funeral. He had just passed away the other week, and he still is holding on to that truck, So it's crazy to see how this thing, like, this was 20 plus years later, and he's still holding on to that. We hold on to things in weird ways, right? And that was an objective thing that he was holding on to. And in that same intersection, the following shift, I ran my actual like first child code, and it was at a child care center. And when you're on probation, you're the first one off the truck. You're the first one with the important boxes. And then you run into the scene on the really rough ones. And I ran into this childcare place, and right in the front office, they were holding this kid, and they just handed him to me. And he was like 4 years old, and he's just lifeless, right? And you're trying to like lock it in real quick. And there's other kids in all the other rooms, and they have the door shut, but they have that little window. And all I can see is all these little kids just looking through this window, and they're watching us try to work this kid. And luckily at that point, I started telling them, like, hey, you guys need to cover those windows. Like, we've got to do some things here. I need all this stuff covered up. Um, but the part out of all of that was so hard is we got to the hospital, and we had pulled up in the truck. We parked outside the entrance, and I could see, I knew it was the mom. She was frantically driving around the parking lot, and I stopped her and I got her out and brought her in, and for 25 minutes I stood there with her just listening to her scream. And anybody that's been in this profession, or anybody who's unfortunately lost a child at a young age, there is a specific scream, cry that is palpable. Like, I mean, we'll get into our journey, but that first night when we had someone have an experience, there was a scream, and it triggered me in our ayahuasca moment, like, to where I remember telling you, I'm like, bro, I need to get out of here. Like, I can't be in this Maloka. I gotta bounce. Like, I'm out of here. And full circle, like, being there and not, and like being in that moment, like, I can still hear that scream. I remember that moment. I remember just holding that mom, and like that connection, that chest to chest, that heart feeling, man. It pulls away, and it still makes me emotional to this day. But those were in the very beginning of my career. And I didn't realize from that point on, until my wife pointed it out about 16 years on the job, that I avoided driving through that intersection because of those two calls. Even if it was saving us 20 minutes going that way, I would go all the way around, and I wouldn't even think about it. I didn't even know it was my brain, and my normal actions had blocked me out from that space, man. I couldn't do it.
That's such an
Yeah.
interesting example of that, but it doesn't surprise me, man, at all. I think that's jumping ahead a little bit, but that's something that we've seen a lot, like with people that we work with, when they
Hmm.
start to actually process all of these things. We do this process called shadow work that I know you know what that is. And they
Hmm.
start to actually look at the shit that they've been carrying and look at all the ways that it's affecting them. And it can actually become almost destabilizing when someone realizes that who they thought they were is actually just like a collection of trauma responses or a collection of masks that they put on. And we've
Yeah.
worked with 40-year-old dudes who, for the first time in their life, admit that they were sexually abused as a kid. And they realize like their entire persona is not actually who they would have been without that happening. So this is like
Yeah.
a small example, I guess. But as you're saying, driving 20 minutes out of the way to avoid this specific intersection, and you have no idea that you're even doing that until someone else points
Yeah.
it out. So, what I wanted to ask you first, actually, apart from calls like that, where it's like, this is a distinctly traumatic thing that I am personally involved with, is there almost like a sort of passive level of trauma, I guess, that you pick up just from seeing that number of deceased people, like just
Yeah.
by being in that environment? Does I feel like that's got to accumulate on you, and again, probably something that you're
Dude.
not really aware of as it's happening.
No, you're not. And I didn't realize COVID hit and we were short staffed, so they were making this. We were getting force hired to cover for medics, and one of the ones that I did, we ran on this kid, this baby, and that was my breaking point. That one hit me. The mom, the scene, it was not a good scene. Um, there were a lot of other kids in there that had to be a part of the situation and they couldn't leave because outside of the apartment was a violent action going, so we were locked in with PD. And that one, for some reason, was the final. Like, my container was full and it was so full that it just split right down the middle and it was seeping out and everything started piling in. I was our EMS captain at the time, so, and COVID had hit like a month later, so we were trying to pivot and the supply demand and all that, so I was already carrying a heavy load on top of all these other calls 16 years prior to that. And I in our city is a very, very busy department, and I had always been at the busy stations, so I was just accumulating this stuff over and over. And we'll go deeper into it, but there was a part when my wife and I were trying to have kids, and it seemed like for that 4.5 years, all I did was run these just screwed up traumatic child calls, and this one just snapped it for me, and it broke me, and that's when I realized I was carrying it all, and I didn't realize the weight of that was in my body until we were in Peru and I connected with the medicine on that last night. And you remember, man, like that. My body has never purged any. That was 3.5 days of just fever, peeing out
Yeah,
my
you were
butt.
rough.
Like, oh my gosh, man, it was so brutal. It was like, and Sylvia, thank goodness she was there and they came into town with us and kept taking care of me because she's like, hey, I just remember her saying, she's like, because I remember we were sitting, having our, just talking around the fire, and people started asking about calls, and I started telling them, and she was listening, and I didn't realize that your wife was sitting in there translating to her what had happened. And I remember the one day I was laying in the kitchen on the deck that they had just finished building there, and Cordy came over with Sylvia, and I was like, when's this gonna pass? And she just said, she's like, you have a like you told us 3 calls, and she's like, you have hundreds, maybe thousands of them, and she's like, they're all coming out, and like they're gonna keep coming out until this stuff's out. And that's when I realized that it really held on. And we'll, as we get further into this, like I'll tell you further like how my journey's continued since that point and the other calls that have come out and the things. Like, I thought after that I was like, oh man, we're good. I'm good. No, I'm still holding some of them. They're still coming out. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, maybe this is a good time to ask. It's almost like a philosophical question, like how can there be more firefighters and EMTs? Like this, we still need to do this job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the solution here, short of just pretending everything's fine until you retire? Because, dude, I talk to so many like active duty police officers who need our program and they can't
Yep.
engage in it because microdosing is still frowned upon and they would jeopardize their job and all that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
what the fuck, man, are we supposed to do? Like, because we need people like you doing that
Yeah.
job. We can't just change them out every year because you need the accumulated experience to be good at it.
Yeah.
And I know that this is something that you're kind of working on in some various ways now. So do you see a solution to like not just traumatizing every individual who works this job?
I don't know if it's a solution, but it is a direction of going in. It's there's steps that are going in the right direction to assist with knowing how to process and understand that energy is not yours to carry all the time. But for example, like soon as I started my journey, and we'll get into that, but the first day, like it 180 degrees shifted me, and I started seeing it. And I was a captain. I promoted very young, so I was a captain for over half of my career, and so I was always supervising and mentoring, and I started realizing that I get to show up in a different way. I'm going to show up. I'm going to start teaching people. We're going to really spend time with the calls. We're going to talk about how we work through those. The ones that are really bad, not even giving guys options. Like initially, when I first got on the job, it's like, oh, we're going to give you an option to go home. But a lot of guys are like, oh, I don't want to go home. Again, that's ego, bearing everything to the back, thinking that being with your crew is going to help you. You guys will talk, joke about it. That's the normal standard for public safety is we joke about it. We find a way to joke about it to create some lightness to it. That doesn't work for very long. Then you start becoming disheartened with society and humanity and all these other things are going on in you. So I think like one of the solutions is getting them at a young time, like when they first start to come in. So I've presented it. There's some things that are happening now, but when they're in the academy, there's some blocks in there to have people come in and talk about this, people that are retired or people who are currently in it and them sharing their stories. That's why I've been so open and vocal about this. And that's why I got involved is because I truly just want to help people. I want people to find that peace inside of them and realize that like it's not yours to carry, but you can be in the moment with the individual and feel that trauma like you said earlier. And this is we're going on their worst day, why they called us. And I had a hard time understanding that until I started my journey and realizing that we don't get to pick people's journeys. We don't get to pick what's trauma for them. Their trauma is their trauma. And for all we know, it's triggering, and it could be something minor, but it's triggering something like you said from childhood. It goes all the way back to that, and that's the same thing. Most public safety people, and you've seen this too with what you guys are doing, it starts at childhood and then we get into it. And I think that's one of the reasons is we want, because we become this dopamine driven individual, right? Like we need gratification. We need to know we're fixing something. And in public safety, military, all that, you're fixing something that you're problem solving. It may not be a permanent solution, but it's a band-aid and it takes care of it. So you get so hit on that. And then you thrive on that because this up here gets so chaotic and you can't keep up with it. So to calm that is where you start seeking to help others. Then you get into substance abuse, and then you get into emotional disorder, dysregulation. There's so many things. So that younger age, like we have it's a peer support group now with our department and here in the Valley, and it's gone to the International Association of Firefighters, who's like the main union for the entire United States. They have facilities now. If guys are struggling with things, they can go to these places. They offer that for us. And that's open to PD, fire. That's kind of their own thing. Like they have, everybody's kind of getting their own little broken out places where they can send and help people. But even then, that system's flawed because the people at the top that are agreeing to these decisions and that aren't getting educated enough. So a lot of it comes to education. A lot of it is extremely important, and that's why I started getting involved in the state level. Even before I retired, I was really open about the process. I even went to our state local group, which is the PFFA here, and got support from some of the lobbyists there to help us support. Last year, we ran some stuff through for some dry psilocybin testing, and it was going to really be specific to public safety and military to help, because some of the best studies come from the PTSD with those, because you can get people that are active currently doing it in the moment. So we've been working on some of those things, man. I'm trying to hit it from every facet, along with me doing my own thing and mentoring people. I still talk to people from my work. I help retirees at the place that I work at now, and even active people. So there's things that are happening, and people like you and your wife, man. Like you're going to end up where you're going to end up. And but it does matter who you're with and who is helping you, but you also have to be open-minded to all of it too. So I think at the end of the day, we're going in the right direction. If COVID had any good thing of it, was that it started the mental health process. It sparked it. It's got it going. It's got it's moving, and it's happened. And I was seeing at the station too. I mean, people lost their family members and they started reaching out for help. So that was a big shift because the fire service is known for really pushing against any kind of change, and that was the only one I feel like has moved through that process a little bit quicker versus some of the other things that we've tried in the past.
We'll definitely come back and talk about the efforts that you've been involved in to
Yeah, yeah,
move the ball down the field in that direction. And actually, you and I personally, I want to put a pin in this and come back to talk about it. I mentioned this with my friend Seb the other day. Cordy and I are kind of in the process of basically taking our program, subtracting the actual taking a microdose from it, and sort of repackaging it in a way that active duty guys can participate. Because I feel like with everything that we do, the medicine's actually only one small component of it, of
right.
changing habits and routines, building that relationship with yourself. And you're definitely someone whose input I want on how to build
Yeah,
that in an effective way for these people. So off
love to.
off off the script, we'll talk about that some more.
I love
But
it.
before we go further, obviously we need to talk about your actual foray into plant medicine, how you got down this path. But I know that there's one other element that we haven't hit on, which is what your family personally went through, some stuff that happened to your kids. Are you
Yeah,
cool getting into that
yeah,
and how that affected
yeah.
you?
I'll probably cry, but that's all right. I cry all the time. I cry at commercials
That's
now,
cool.
so yeah. Um, for it to make sense a little bit, because the person that I was, or I should say, the person that I evolved into, having been in the profession, and then all the childhood stuff starting to build up with that. Um, I Had I not had my first psychedelic experience and put myself in the right state of mind when this event happened, we wouldn't be talking. I guarantee I'd be behind bars. So I was on shift. Everything happens when you're on shift. All the bad stuff happens. All it comes up. All that. So I got a phone call about 9 o'clock at night, and I was at a really busy station. We'd just been getting killed all day, and my wife called and she's like, "Hey, like she's freaking out. She's like, you need to come home." I'm like, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" She's like, one of our sons just told me that he was sexually assaulted by the neighbor. And I'm like, "What?" And I'm trying to wrap my head. I'm like, he was young. He was still pretty young then. This has been 3 years now since we figure it probably happened once things got pieced together. So he's the youngest, and then I have twin boys that are 18 months older than him. And he also said, he goes, yeah, he goes, one of my other boys, he's like, he goes, it happened to him too. And it was forceful and it was threatened. And I remember driving home and all I could see was red, man. I couldn't see anything. Like I was driving so fast home, and I was driving home on a mission to end somebody and take that equation out of it happening to anybody else, and thinking that that would find some relief in me, some relief in my boys. And I got home. We did luckily I called my best friend, and he talked me out of doing stupid things. And he's like, "Hey, calm down." Like I had everybody run to my aid. He called one of our chiefs at work that was on shift. He called me immediately. He's like, "I'm driving to your house. I'm going to sit outside your house all night." And he goes, "I'm not letting you out." He's like, "Don't do a thing." He's like, "I don't need you doing anything." And luckily, man, this guy got it because he had fostered a lot of um, children that had been in similar situations. So just some of the words and some of the things he said to me kept me from going to a really dark place. But as a dad, as a like as a husband, as a man, the way you're supposed to be, the way you're supposed to take care of things and do all this shit. Now, like I was so perplexed. I didn't know what the right thing to be, how to go about it. And so I tried doing the legal route. We went through all of that, and I was failed by the system. And this is someone who works in the system. So it became very, very hard for me. And when you get into your healing journey, you start seeing everything very differently. So I really started dissecting the process. And at the same time, this individual, there's one house between us. And I'm trying not to impede and go into that. And going the route that we did, it took a long time for it to get back to them. Well, our kids used to play together all the time. And then we started, obviously, they couldn't play with them, their kids. And they came over to talk to us about it. And I lost it. He showed up to my house at my door. I lost it. It blew up. Nothing physical, but it just started to spiral down from that. And then I started really beating myself up. I was like, I've been too focused on, and like, keep in mind, this is fairly fresh after me starting my healing journey. I'm like, this is just too fresh for me. I don't, why does this feel this way? I'm like, this is an emotion I don't know how to handle. Like, I was still trying to figure out all these other emotions that I had never spent time understanding. And this one I couldn't feel, man. I just felt like I failed. I felt like I should have been there. I felt like I should have been doing more. And, being a parent, man, like, you always want to give them better than you had, right? And I didn't even have that. So now I'm not even living up to that, right? Like, I didn't get to give a better position. I didn't create a better environment, and I beat myself up for a long time until I went with you guys. Um, Even till probably, honestly, about a month ago, and we'll get deeper into that. But um, yeah, and I'll tell you, for a long time, I came to the realization after that fact that we we had a bond, and I didn't know it at the time. Me and my boys, and my job had always had me very disconnected from them. As much as I would show up and I'd be there and that, but there was this part of me that was just always anticipating having to go back to work and not being with my family and being pulled away and being Mando hired to come in and work. Well, through the midst of all this and continuing my process, I could never sit with that feeling like it was a thing that was just impeding my growth. And I knew it was internal. And I know I needed to go deeper, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Well, recently, and we'll talk more into this, but I had a similar thing that came up and it brought a wall down sitting with psychedelics. And the similar thing had happened to me. And I completely blocked it out, forgot about it, never thought about it, like, to the point where I didn't think it ever happened. And then soon as I sat with medicine, it opened it up, man, and I lost it. Like, I lost it. And I knew in that moment that that emotion that I was feeling was I was a victim. I never thought as myself as being a victim, but that was the thing that didn't sit with me, is because I knew what they were going through. Like, because all of a sudden everything came back. This weight that I had been carrying that I didn't realize I'd been carrying was all starting to come out. And it was hard for 2 weeks, man. I don't think I even talked. My wife thought something was really wrong with me. She, to the point where she thought, my trip with you guys was not a good thing. She's like, I don't know if that was good. And it took a lot for me just to talk to her about it and tell her. And the fucked up thing about all that is that it was my half brother, and it was less than a month after my dad had died. And, luckily I can look back in that moment and understand that we are products of our environment. He wasn't with my dad, he had been with his mom's side, and there were all these other things that had happened. Um, but yeah, man, I'm still dealing and processing with that one, and how I go and how I carry myself from here on out. But showing up for my kids, was the big thing. Is like, how do I show up for them? How do I help them? How do I be the best person for this situation, having it had happened to me? How do I help them through this? So I think that's one of the reasons, man, I dove so hard into this, was that when that happened to them, I was like, I have to understand this inside and out, because I have to do, my life is dedicated to make sure that this is not something that hinders them for the rest of their life, and they learn how to have a healthy process to move through this, and know that it's okay to talk about it, and it wasn't their fault, and it wasn't the things that they did that led to those. But trying to create that environment and that understanding and that openness to have someone come, because it's hard in the beginning of this. Like, even at this age, like, my twins are going through puberty hard right now, and they don't understand things. So trying to explain it, it's messed up, man. It's a process, and unfortunately, this happens everywhere out there. And there's so much that it's happened to so many people. It's scary, and that's what I found out too when we were. That was the first time I'd ever done community healing. That was the first time I really opened up to a group of people. And I was uncomfortable when we first got there. And I was like, no, I was like, that's what this is about. Like, we're all here. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all screwed up. Yeah.
Dude, what I said earlier about like us working with dudes in their 40s who finally admit to themselves that they were sexually abused, and
Oh,
like I said that without any prior knowledge of where this
I know,
conversation
and
was gonna go, man.
I almost went, hey, let's go back to that real quick, and let me just let me go ahead and add to
Yeah,
your
please.
percentage check right now. Yeah, right.
Fuck, man.
Yeah,
Uh, um, you said when you start getting into the healing stuff, you start looking at all these things differently and trying to like
yeah,
understand them from different perspectives.
yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you this actually about all of the calls that you had with deceased people, but obviously this applies here too. Like, do you have any sense of like why all of those things happen to you? Do you have any kind of like cosmic explanation of why you got so many bad calls with children,
Yeah.
or even this? How do you make sense of that? Like, what is your understanding of all this?
My when I connected with the creator, the divine, the universal love, it was rough. I think I had that moment in there where I was asking, I'm like, I go, why me? Like, why is everything this way? Like, why does life have to be this way? Why did I have to see everything the way this was on? And I'm telling you, like, I the calls I've been on, and all these people that are in these professions have been in horrific calls, but like you really sit with them when you're in that space, when you know it's something that's really impeding your growth or something that really stuck with you. And it just I when I asked that question, it was like, all right, let me lay it out. And it just we went through a Rolodex, man, and we started flying through calls. They were just like passing me, but yet I was still capturing them and seeing them. And every single one, it just made me more resilient in a way to where I think that it made me a better mentor um, through the job and working with some younger people. I mean, I've helped some younger people on our job get through some really rough calls, but as screwed up as it all was, and this is before I knew it was like it's just it. All of these were preparing you to be a person to help other people, and that was what I always wanted to do. And I think when we're younger, we always hit this space where we're like, yeah, I'm like destined to do something big. Like I'm gonna do something huge. And I don't know what that looks like for me. I'm not gonna change the world, but I'm one person at a time, man. If someone needs help, like I'm gonna do it. And that's what I am. And that it's I don't give unsolicited advice, but when someone's ready and they know when they're ready, or if you hear something, you can throw a couple words in there and feel the environment. But all of those calls, all of these things that have happened in my life, man, I think it's just helped me create this space to understand that we are all products of our environment, and there's no book out there on how to do it. It's we're all trying to figure it out, like we talked about in the beginning. But dude, all of these things, it was just you've done this, you've had to see all of these, and this is so that you can help other people heal, so you can relate to all of these different scenarios, all these bad things you've seen. Like when someone talks to you about their trauma, you can pull some of those things from there, and you can go, okay, like let me just sit with you in your environment, let me feel your emotion, let me try to just be there for you emotionally, let's connect energetically, let's have conversation, and just help them through that process. Sometimes they just need someone to listen to, man. And I think that's what it's turned into, is it's like, the quietest man's the smartest man in the room, some kind of scenario. Yeah.
The only thing I would push back on is when you said, you're meant to have this effect in the world. You already
yeah,
have, dude. Like just what
yeah,
you shared with
yeah, yeah,
that call where you were like, "Hey, we need to cover these windows so that these kids can't see it."
yeah,
Like that's I don't know, 40 children that you just changed the course of their life because of you just making that one simple instruction. So don't
yeah.
sell yourself short on that front,
No,
man. I'm sure
and
you.
yeah, no, and that's the thing, that you look back and you start realizing all these little things that you did, man. And then like
Yeah.
it's really humbling, and it's not that you need it. You don't need someone to tell you like, oh, I appreciate this, I appreciate that. Like the times where you show up, but people that I had no idea we had relate like a connection in any shape or form have come through. Like when I left the department, I left a letter. I didn't let them go through it and dissect it, but it was all on mental health. I talked about everything, like all the things we're talking about now, and that was the thing I sent. I did a copy all, sent it, and I literally shut my computer down and walked out the door for the last time at the station. And man, it was so powerful. I within a week and a half's time, I had 13 people, like people that never talked about this. They were the hard asses. They were the guys that um, you couldn't rock them, right? Like they'd seen it all, they'd done everything. They were these tough guys, like they were looked up to. They were big mentors of that man, and they all reached out. They're like, dude, I'm screwed up. I'm struggling. I'm hurting. I got this. Like I got that. Like you got guys that got substance abuse. Like they all start with this with no substance abuse, but man, it turns you to like I've lost guys from my academy. I watched guys leave the department that never had any issues, and then all of a sudden they got drug problems. They got drinking problems. We got they have all these things, and it was like, I was like, holy cow, there's this, what an impact to be able to have on a group of people and grow from that. And then like the thing that I know this too, but I never realized it now that I'm in this point, is like you start helping these people, and man, you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much helping other people, because we all can relate in some shape or form. You talk to someone long enough, man, you realize how small the world is, right? And when you talk about the impact, that impact is everywhere. It's not even on a traumatic thing. It's literally opening a door or telling somebody, "Oh, you look nice today," or something like that. Like the light that you create in somebody, they say that like all of the times that you have an effect and you drop that serotonin for somebody, and if you could shut everything down on the planet and then just light up all those individuals that you made, and how that individual went further and further, you'd light up the whole place, right? Because that is how far just being a kind person can go. And then you get into the traumatic stuff like this, and then you really realize the impact you can have. And it's not that I'm looking to have an impact, man. I just want to help because somebody helped me, and it's to pay it forward.
Is that almost how you see what happened to you as a kid, the sexual abuse that you went through, almost positioning you to now,
Yeah, I do. As
I don't
screwed up
know,
as it is.
to be there for your sons in a way that nobody was there for you.
Yeah, in the most screwed up way. And, my mom will probably never see this podcast, but my mom doesn't know that. Like, my half brother, I haven't decided what that looks like. What that relationship is moving forward. Um, there's a lot of things that we get to process and take our time with and see how we want to show up and how we're going to do those things. But it is, man, it's fucked up as it is. Like it is, it makes me connect with them a little bit more without me having a conversation day in and day out about it. But I can see it right now, like especially during this growth phase for them and where they're at in their life is it's the emotional, like giving them the ability to have the emotions in the moment, let them go through it, and just be there to support them, and then through that process, teaching them ways to a healthy way to approach it, so that way they have an outlet, and they know they have someone to go to. My wife's embodied this way before me, like, so she's been a big part of this process, man. Like me getting there, like always seeing this in me, just like you see it in people when you talk to them. And you're like, hey, I think this would be good for you. It's like she just always saw it. But when I realized what had happened to me and going through that and having that conversation with my wife, it started changing the relationship with her and my boys too, because it made more sense to her why that situation bothered me so much. Not that it already didn't bother me to a level, but why it was really bad for me and why I continued to beat myself up and why I felt stuck for so long until I went with you guys.
I see. I guess I got my questions a little bit out of order. So
No, you're
talk to me
good.
about when the healing journey actually started for you, because it was before this unfolded. And like you said, if you hadn't started, you'd probably be in jail right now for murder.
Yeah.
So what did the beginning of that path look like for you?
Um, well, COVID was going on. Um, some of my childhood trauma was going on. I was starting to have traumatic call nightmares. I wasn't sleeping. I was sleeping like 3 hours a night, maybe. And then I was working on the truck, and I felt like we were running a lot of bad calls at the same time. And I had a freaking mental breakdown. I remember I was driving into work, and I just snapped, like almost like a panic attack. And we'd run panic attacks, and you're like, it's okay. You're like trying to walk someone through breath, and you're trying to change that. And I couldn't do it. I'm just sitting off the side of the freeway. And I got home. I ended up calling out. I told work I couldn't come in. I got home. I remember getting in the shower trying to calm down, and I lost it. I like started yelling, screaming. My wife walked in, and she's like, "Hey," she's like, "a lot of things are surfacing." She's like, "We love you. but we can't do this anymore. I was coming home mad. I would walk in the door. I would start yelling for no reason about stupid things like a dish sitting on top of the island or just stupid stuff. And she's like, this is out of control now. She's like, you need to get help. And I'm like, all right. So I called our peer support. It was still pretty new at the time. And I called one of my buddies from there. And he's like, hey, I got this counselor. Go talk to her. So in the midst of that counselor, we started talking. And then I started experimenting. I started looking into things. I'm like, something's not breaking. Like, I can't get out of this. I don't feel these things. Like, and as I started, the counseling started helping, man. I was out one night at a barbecue, and a group of friends were like, "Hey, like, we got some MDMA. You want to try it?" And I'm like, my wife was with me, and she goes, I don't know. And I go, let's do it. I was like, I just feel like I need to do it. Like something's telling me I need to do it. And I was really trying to listen to myself through my process, my healing process. So we had that. The night was amazing, man. I just finally felt love. Like I felt love for myself. I felt love for my wife. I came home. I remember like my kids had no idea, but I just remember sitting on the couch and just
I
like
hugged them
laying.
so tight.
Oh, bro, dude, I was just holding them like this. I'm like, come here. Like, I was just holding them and we're just like laughing. And my boys were like, who is this guy? Like, what the hell is going on?
You
right
were
now?
on MDMA hugging your kids, or this was like the next day or something?
No, this is that later that night. Like, I got home. Like, and I'm like sitting here just we're like watching a movie.
That was probably so awesome.
Oh, it was amazing. Like, I highly recommend home rolls. They are amazing. Like, dude, you want to, and your kids have no clue. But now at this point, like, we're so open about everything, this process, and like they ask a lot of questions about what I'm doing in the moment, what I'm going through. Like, they know that I work with a lot of people now with what I do for my job now. So they understand it, but because I don't want to keep my kids from this. Like, it's one of those things that like there may be a day because of some of the things that have happened to them, and that was young. Like that's going to come up just like it did for me. So this might be an avenue. I'm always going to be supportive in their journey. Like it's their journey. Like we don't get to pick anybody's journey. Your journey is your journey, and you go about it the way you want. My job is to be a mentor at this point for them. Like I keep them safe, keep them fed, but I'm there to talk to them.
I think that's awesome that you're setting that example. I kind of joke with Cordy that 20 years from now, Sita is going to be sitting at an ayahuasca ceremony and having
Oh,
like purging the memories of me saving her life when she was choking. I don't know if
yeah.
I've told you about this actually. She like almost died, like came very close to like
When?
suffocating. Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you this story at some point.
Okay.
But yeah, like full on CPR. Like back blows didn't cut it, and then I went
Oh
into like
gosh.
chest compressions. It gave Cordy like PTSD watching her eat for the subsequent like honestly up until now. Like she's a good eater now, but
Oh my
um,
gosh.
anyway, back to you for a second. We'll
Yeah.
come back to my story.
Yeah.
How long before you actually got help, like before this basically panic attack happened? How long was it bad for? You know, when you said you'd come home and just yell about a plate being on the table, because most of
Yeah.
the people that I talk to, like they're in that state sometimes for like a decade. So when that
Mm.
was bad, what was that like?
Oh yeah. I'd say that's good. Decade. I
Okay.
didn't know it. Oh dude, I was
Okay,
like,
so it wasn't like just during COVID. Like this was like just
no,
building
it
over
was just
time.
accumulating, right? It was just building and building and building, and like I was never taught like financial, so I was struggling financially, and like we couldn't have kids naturally, so we had to do IVF. So I was working on the department. I was like working as a bar back because no insurance covers IVF, so we had to do IVF. We tried all these other things, man. So like I was just
Mm.
becoming more and more jaded, and then I was running on calls, and I felt like I was being totally screwed over just in life. So like I was just stuck in this mentality that like I you know me, dude, I'm super sociable. I'll talk to a wall and I'll get something back. And I didn't want to be around anybody. My wife's like, I didn't hang out with friends. This lasted for like 5 years. That was when it got really bad. She goes, Mark, it's been 5 years and you don't go out with any of your guy friends. She's like, you don't want to be around people. She's like, our relationship is like this, like just up and down to the point where she's like, I don't know where I fit in this. Like, she's a saint, man, for sticking around for all of this. Like, she is my rock, dude. She's my Cosmo love. Like, she is the main reason that I am still here because when I was getting to that point, the only thing, honestly, and this is, I've never said this out loud, huh? Um, Even when I came to you guys, man, like I wasn't in a place to where I wanted to be here anymore. And the only reason that probably didn't happen before then was because my wife's ex at the time had taken his life over her. And I was like, I could never do it to her. Like, she's just too good of a person. She just has too much of a loving heart, man. That's the only reason, honestly. My thoughts were dark. They were really intrusive, man. I felt dreadful from the time I went to bed. That's why I couldn't sleep. Like, I felt like I was never in a deep state, because as soon as, if any moment I woke up, I instantly would start playing calls, like financial issues, not showing up as a father, not being the father I wanted to be, always being upset, always being depressed, sad. Like my counselor, at one point, there was a point where I would start my morning off with 100 milligram edible of THC. And through that day, I'd probably consume 300 to 400 milligrams on top of smoking joints in between there. That was like when I called, dude. You remember when? I don't know if you
I
remember when
know.
we did. You're like, hey man, you need like 2 weeks. You guys start bringing it back. Well, I told you, I was like, no, I'm making a commitment. I stopped like cold turkey. That
I
was
do remember that.
hell.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was hell. And I didn't realize that it had just gotten to that point. My counselor, she's like, hey, look, like, she goes, good, bad, and different. She goes, I'm actually okay with this. She goes, because I could clinically diagnose you with depression, anxiety, PTSD. And she's like, I think that's the thing that's just been keeping you going. She's like, otherwise you'd be on SSRIs, and then that would be a whole other road. And I remember talking to her about the MDMA and all that. And she's like, I'm all for it. And I was like, really? And she's like, and she counsels like PD, and like she's her wheelhouse is public safety. And she's like, I'm all for it. She's like, there is not a study out there showing that this is a bad situation. She's like, be smart, make sure
Shout out to
it.
that counselor.
Oh man, she's a rock, dude. And what's great is like, so we go into this as I progress after that MDMA moment. It was June 17th, 2022. I once I had the MDMA experience, I started getting into Reddit. I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out. Like, so then I started diving deeper and deeper, and then I was like, oh, psilocybin was calling to me. I'm like, it's time. So I went as far as make growing my own in that moment, so that way I knew where it was coming from, because I'm being a medic and having seen all the calls. I was like, it's got to be mine. Like I have to know it's safe, everything. And my wife knew about it. I told her, I was like, hey, look, I'm kind of at a last stitch effort right now. Like I need a breakthrough because I'm stuck. And a good buddy of mine had gone and held space for people a couple times, and he had known I was going through stuff, and we started building a relationship, and we were camping with his family, and him and I were out driving, and he pulled off to the side of the road, and he goes, hey man, like I think you're ready. I think it's time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm ready to take you up. Like, he goes, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, dude, I'm ready. I go, here's everything I've done. Here's what I dedicate my mornings and my days to. And he's like, all right. So we went up that day that I told you on June 17th. And I took my mushrooms, and he's like, I'm going to be here. You go where you need to go, and I'll be here when you're done. And I remember putting on my blindfold. I was sitting by this creek in Sedona. It was in the middle of the week. There was nobody there. And I took my mushrooms, and I started walking, and I started walking up the creek, man. And I went until those mushrooms kicked in, and it hit me, and it was like, right here. You're going to do it right here. And I sat down, put my eye mask in, put my playlist in, and it just started going, man. And I started driving in, and I went through a whole ego death. It was 5.5 hours. I took 5 grams of albino penis envy, and it took me all the way, man. And that's where I told you the Rolodex went through. I went from everything bright to nothing, and then I felt myself growing out of the ground, and I just felt like I was shown all of these lessons that I had learned along the way, but I couldn't see, I couldn't appreciate. And then it just showed me some other things that I knew, but I just again threw it to the back, right? We just keep throwing things to the back. And from that point on, man, I remember coming out of it, and I just remember I that whole journey, I cried, yelled, laughed, screamed, man, everything. And I remember coming out, and somehow I'd ended up in the creek. Like I was sitting in the creek, like in this little pocket with water running on me, with my mask on, my headset. And then finally, when it wore off, I was like 100 feet away. I'd like moved through. I was like crawling through the creek, and I come to, and I take my mask off, man, and it's not dead. There's families, everybody's out now. Like they watched this whole process. But the thing that was great, yeah, dude, there were kids everywhere. I'm like, oh no. And I came out and I'm sitting there and this lady came up to me and she goes, hey, she's like, are you good? And I go, I am. She's like, it's beautiful, isn't it? And I go, it is. I was like, I don't, she goes, you were going through it. She's like, I'm happy for you. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, who
That's
are
like the
you?
most Sedona experience ever.
Oh, this is the part that gets even crazier is because it was still part of the experience because she had this just very connected look to her, sitting on the opposite side of the creek. And I remember we were talking, and I remember taking water and splashing it on my face. And I looked over, and she's gone. And it was like, but our conversation like solidified so many things for me, and I don't know who it was, what spirit being that was, or whatever. But man, like I could draw if I knew how to draw, I could draw her, and she was gone. And I looked everywhere, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. But that was the turning point for me, man. And that day, I remember calling I had my buddy call my wife, and I told her. I just remember breaking down and crying. And from that day on, man, if my wife was in here, she'd tell you I'm 180 degrees different from that moment on. And that's the only reason I'm still here. Because when that happened to my boys, man, I'm telling the old me, there was nothing. I didn't see anything else, man. I'd be in jail right now, hands down.
Apart from that, so apart
Yeah.
from what happened to your boys after that
Mm-hmm.
experience, because I know that it's a huge turning point, but obviously something we talk about is that,
Yeah.
hey, this one medicine experience is actually not solving every issue that you have,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, what did things look like from there forward? Like, what actually changed for you, or what did you start doing differently because of everything that you were shown on that journey?
I started realizing the depth of work that was going to be involved. Um, like I said, the calls played through. I could feel them. I was emotionally raw, man. I remember going to work I went to work 2 days later and we ran one call and I didn't realize that I was showing up at work so bad. We went on one call and I was like, I'm on that cloud, right? I'm riding that pink cloud around everywhere. I'm like, I'm processing, absorbing. And we went on this call and we get back and everybody at the station, it was like an intervention. They're like, sit down. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, hey, like, what's going on with you? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, something, are you on drugs? Are you drunk? I'm like, no. I'm like, no, why? And they're like, you're happy. And I'm like, what? And they're like, you're happy. And they're like, the
What's
customer
wrong?
service you just gave was the person that I remember when I first started working here. So what happened?
That's
And I was
awesome.
like, I felt that moment. Like, and I felt like in that medicine moment, it was like, hey, you need to get out of this job at 20 years. Like, you're done. It was like, you are done. You want to be the dad you want to be? You're done with the fire department. You want to step into the purpose that you were here for? You're going to be done. You want to be the husband, you want to be the friend, you want to be the son, you want to be the brother, you want to be all these things. Like, you're done at 20. And I remember in that space, I was like, okay, like, why? Like, and it's like, because you're going to work for me now. Like, now your job is, now this is your purpose. Your job is to help other people. And when they asked me what happened to me, I was that from that point on, everybody at work knew what had happened to me, all the way up to, our higher management level. I was like, look, because it was that significant. It was that much of a difference that everybody did. And so I started sharing with everybody. And then I realized, I was like, oh man, like I got some momentum for this job. Now I can actually like help people in a different way, and then I get to show up and I get to understand and cope with people on calls. But the whole time in there I was like, you have a lot of work to do on yourself, and in order to really be able to do these things, you got to keep diving deeper, because there's still a lot of stuff I kept feeling. I was having these emotions of sadness, and I was sitting with a lot of calls at that time, and it just continued to keep me diving deeper, man. I started getting into journaling. I had never read a book my entire life from front to back ever in its entirety until after that moment. And after that, somebody was like, hey, you should read this book, and you should read. And then I just started going. I started reading, and then I started diving deeper into what these other medicines can access and do. And I was like, holy cow. So like when I get my next block, I need to find the next thing and try to break through that. And as
What
I've
was on the
gotten
reading
further,
list?
oh man, what was the first one? My conversations with God.
Okay.
And yeah, because I prior to this I was atheist. Like I never had a spiritual connection. I respected people's beliefs, but I just didn't see it. I was like, oh, that's just something for people to find solace and peace in, so that it helps you deal with mortality better. And if that's what people need in order to do the golden rule and treat people how you want to be treated, type of thing, then was like, great, that's what I'd love to see everywhere. But at this point, then I was like, holy crap, man, I had a connection and there was a presence of something, someone, something, like that was higher than what I was, and it was higher than everything else. I'd never felt so connected to the planet, to the earth. Like, dude, I hike every morning pretty much. And when I was out hunting, I would pick garbage up when I would see it. But dude, I'd be hiking. I'd like go off the beaten path. I felt like and I still do it to this day. Like I see a piece of garbage, I go way hard right to go grab it because I just feel like my connection has become different here, and it just gets
Owe it
deeper
to
and
the earth.
deeper. Yeah, I owe it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, similar thing, man. I was a super atheist back in the day, and then I did
Mm-hmm.
LSD, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm not an atheist anymore because you can't be. And I was
Yeah.
kind of agnostic. And then I went and did ayahuasca. And now I literally pray to God every day and talk to
Yeah.
God every single day. So yeah, pretty par for the course on that one. Um, all right, so fast forward a little bit, and I don't even remember how we got in touch at all. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, I do. So to get me to where you're at real quick. So, as I started getting into the space, I started getting involved at the state. Started, once you start like really connecting and you start your growth journey and you start really paying attention to your life, you start getting connected with people. And I got asked because I was public safety at the time and ketamine's legal. So they were like, hey,
Mhm.
this ketamine clinic reached out to me. They're like, hey, we'd love to have you. Have you ever done ketamine? I'm like, no, I've never done it. They're like, have you done it recreationally? I'm like, I've never done ketamine. They're like, great, we would love for you to come to our clinic. We're going to do a podcast before. We're going to talk about things you've gone through, so similar, like laid out. And they're like, and then we're going to run you through 3 treatments, and then we want to do another podcast. And on my third session, the last one, I was in a space of like a very jungle-esque, like Aztec type. Like I couldn't identify it, but I was going down this tunnel, and Mother Aya reached out for me and was like, I'm ready for you. Come to me. And I told them when I came out, they're like, it's going to find you. Like it's working its way to you. And I didn't know anything about ayahuasca at this time. I was explaining the image, and she was like, did it look like this? She pulled up her phone. I'm like, that's it. She goes, all right, enough said. And a month later, one of the guys, a buddy of mine, he's like, hey man, we came across this thing. It's a scholarship for public safety veterans, all these things and they'll send you to these. They'll send you somewhere to do more medicine work. So he sent me the thing, and I filled it out, and it was 343 Skutkin. It's a foundation, and Angela, she's an amazing woman. I filled this thing out, man. 15 minutes later, she called me, and you fill out this whole thing, and it's like, what medicine do you want to do? And I was like, ayahuasca. And she called me right away. She's like, why? Hey, I got a call. Like, I got to know why'd you pick ayahuasca? And I told her my whole story, told her, we ended up talking for almost 2 hours. And she goes, look, I never have anybody check this box. She's like, no one ever checks ayahuasca. And I was like, oh. I was like, I go, that's where I'm headed. I was like, I go, with or without this, I go, I just want to, it's calling to me. And she's like, oh, you're going. And she goes, look, I have a group. I have these people. I want you to check out their Instagram. I went on, I looked at your guys' Instagram, and I was like, okay, yeah. Like I'm on the phone with her looking at it, and she goes, what do you think? And I was like, I love it. I was like, she goes, that's where I'm going to send you. And I was like, okay. And she goes, I've never sent anybody there before. She's like, but a buddy of mine that used to work with my husband he's been there before, and he's going again actually, and he's a firefighter. So I'm going to link you guys up. And so then I reached out to you. We got a hold and we started talking about it. I got hooked in with you guys through her. And then we come to find out as I got deeper into the state stuff here was where I met Mental Joe, and it just happened to be going through his site. And I flipped up and you were one of the people becoming home. And I'm like, I'm like, so then I called him. I was like, bro, he goes, oh, that's who you went with? He goes, oh yeah, like the jujitsu thing. And we got all this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man. Like the chances of us connecting in that way was just unreal. I was like, this is all meant to be. Like how it worked out. And then I got to meet you guys. We got there, and dude, it was, yeah. We can go deeper into that, but that trip was life
Well, yeah,
changing. Obviously,
that's why I was asking that to bring us up to speed to the Peru trip. So we Dude, we've already been talking over an hour, so we don't need like a play-by-play trip
Yeah,
report. But what do you want to share on that front? And it was actually really interesting what you said earlier, that up until a month ago, that work really wasn't finished, or not
yeah,
finished is the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying.
yeah,
So talk to me about what came through for you first in Peru, and then we could
yep,
talk about kind of how it's evolved over time. But yeah,
yeah,
what was that experience like?
yeah, dude. Well, I mean, the whole
Other than
experience
being
was
sick
good.
and shitting and throwing up a lot.
Yeah, I'd do it all over again, man. I'd do it all, and I will eventually.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was an experience, right? Traveling by myself, like leaving my family, um, and I was like really home broken at the time. I didn't know where I needed to be. I was so lost at that point, and I was just hoping that this was gonna get me where I needed to get. And just from the time we got there, man, I remember talking to some, like, just all the people we met, dude. Like, we all still talk in tech. We still talk to this day.
Yep.
Like, I
Yep.
travel and meet people. Like, when they're close to me, I'll drive and go meet them because we just built this relationship. Um, but one of the females, like her and I, just connected right out the gate, man. And I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And the journey just got better and better, from the environment to the setting. Like, it was the most organic, real setting. And then, like, finally getting to connect and meet with you guys, because you just don't know, like, this space can be really rough. Like, there are people out there, I think they have good intentions, but it's just not everybody is for everybody. You have to find your people. And that was probably my biggest concern, because I'm getting ready to be raw with all of you. And dude, it just, you guys were just great. The people, Sylvia, her family, like, where we went, man, the embodying, like, dude, I freaking passed out. I've never passed out in my life. Like, I went to the extreme with the diet. I freaking broke a chair, broke my rib. Wake up to you with your arm around me, telling me it's okay, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, where am I? I'm like the only one with like extended medical. You and I were the ones with medical training, and we're 3 hours
Yep.
away from a city, but
Yep.
yeah, all the connection, man. I had beautiful, beautiful closure with my father situation. Like, man, it was, we got to talk in there, um, to the point where I'd spent so much time. I said it had to have been 2+ hours, and I was like, hey, man, like, I appreciate this, but I got to go. I've got other things I got to work on, because I was there to. My dad had come up in my first psilocybin journey, but I was like, I'm here. I gotta figure this out with my boys. Like, I gotta show up. I gotta be the man I'm supposed to be for them.
I
And
shouldn't be
then,
laughing, but that's kind of funny. Like, hey, Dad, it's been real, but I
yeah,
got some other shit I gotta go look at.
I got some more fucked up shit to deal with here. So then we got into the kids, and then I remember, they came around and they were singing the Icaros, and
Yeah.
the purge just came real, man. And when that thing came tenfold and the purging started, I literally felt literally felt everything leave my body. Um, and then I just, the process of the pain that I felt physically, for the next 3 days after that last day, I needed it. I needed it when I got through it. And we were at the hotel before we left. We went into the city that day, and I got to sit there with you guys, man. I just remember you took us to that coffee, like, we went to get burgers because we were
Oh yeah.
like, fuck, we're over the diet. Let's go get a burger. And we were like, this is going to be a horrible decision, but we're going to get it. But I remember, you were sitting to my left, and we had people sitting across from us. I remember looking at you and looking at them, and I was like, man, what a what a beautiful experience and journey. And I was like, I'm forever connected to these people. I was like, I just remember looking up, and at that point I was like, I'm like, thank you, God, for this. Like, thank you for this moment. Thank you for this opportunity to find something to work on. And then we talked about the microdosing program, and coming back, like, that was perfect for me, because it helped with integration, but the integration's tough. That, I mean, dude, that is the most important piece of this. And
Well,
you
dude,
guys
this
do
this whole
such a,
podcast is a
yeah,
this whole podcast is a thinly veiled commercial for the microdosing program. So tell me about
yeah,
that too. How did that
yeah.
support the integration process?
It came, I mean, I already had my relationship with psilocybin. I got it on my body, man. It changed my life. I fucking love it so much. It's all over the back of me here. It's
I
everywhere.
know.
It's all over my house. Um, so when you guys like, hey, we do this, I think this, like, the stuff that you have just might be really good. Like, we just want you to do it. Like, don't just come in. do it. Just go through this process with us, like I promise you. And it was just the same thing. It was more of rolling into that community part, and there's so much to be said about a community healing. I think there's a space for the individual, but the community thing is like it just makes you feel normal. And it doesn't matter how somebody perceives you, but there's this internal dialogue's always going on, and it just makes you feel normal. You just feel like you're with people that are on that journey, that are on that process, that want to find peace. Because like, some people in the beginning, they talk a lot about happiness, and we can't always be happy, but we can find peace in it, and we can have gratitude for the good and the bad, and realize the lessons. And
I'm glad.
yeah, no,
I was going to say, I'm glad that you highlight like the community piece because we've started
yeah,
doing literally on Fridays, so just an hour before this, we have kind of this broader community call because we've got people in different groups of our program at different times. People have come to different retreats and stuff like that. And on Fridays, we kind of have a chance to bring multiple different groups together of people who otherwise might not meet. And it's
yeah.
turned into like everyone's favorite part of the entire thing. And
I
like we
love
had
it.
James there today who hadn't he even said like he's been really isolating himself and being down on himself lately and just coming to this call and just kind of sharing some stuff with some other people and hearing their struggles was so uplifting. Just to a little reminder that like you're not alone. So
Yeah,
the community element is so big. And for me, it was
it
an
really is.
afterthought when we started doing it. Like because we worked with people one on one, and then we switched to a group, and I was like, yeah, we'll give them all a fucking group chat. They can all meet, whatever. Like I didn't care
Yeah,
about it whatsoever, and it turned out
yeah.
to be one of the biggest like life changing things for people. So it's just cool to me that that's the first thing that you highlight because I know that was
Oh
also
man,
a newer thing for you of just being held by these
yeah,
other people and not being judged for whatever you're sharing.
yeah. Sometimes, and this is the fucked up thing. Like, we all want to art as a family. You always want to be there for your family, right? But some of those things, it's the same thing. Like, someone in a fire station, a guy telling another guy his feelings and what he's going through takes a lot. Like, it just doesn't happen. And it's kind of the same way when it comes to this healing process, because sometimes you just don't want to share that with your loved ones. Like, you don't want to share the shit you've seen, the shit you've been through with them. You want to share it with a stranger. And because that stranger is just, they're just there for you. And not that your family isn't, but at the same time, like, I don't know the best way to put it, but man, like when you connect with those people in those moments and you hear their stories and you're like, man, it's motivation. Because like I said, you learn a lot from talking to other people, but just hearing some of the people, like the gentleman you have that lives in Canada, that was on all those medications. Can't remember his name now, but he was in our group, and I know he still helps you with stuff. But oh, Toby, yeah, man, hearing his story and just the way he was carrying himself and how he was just continuing to grow, I was like, I love this. Like, how, where else do you get this community, these people that are like, hey, let me tell you all this shit, and let me tell you that it does get better. Just keep pushing. Just keep pushing. It's all perspective, man. And like, I love that you said James texted me literally right before this, and he was like, hey, man, like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, he texted, and we've been texting a little bit here and there, but I we talked a little bit, but I'm going to reach out to him more now too, because it was crazy that all kind of coincided, because I was just thinking about him this morning, actually. Um, but it's like those things, like it's that thing where you've built this relationship with these people. You could see them, like not see them for 10 years and meet up and then just pick right up where you left off. That's community. Like, and through this process, your circle can get really small, but it can get so big in another way. And that's where I learned the community piece, because you start struggling. You feel like a crazy person in the beginning when you're trying to talk to other people about your experiences and the way you feel and the connections you've had, and dude, the communities where it's at, man. You guys do a great job with that. It inspired me. Like, I hold a men's group, with one of the guys that I work with, and just creating a space just for men, because there's not a lot of it out there. So
That's something else that we're gonna add soon. A men's rectangle because Cordy has her women's circle, so we'll have a men's
yeah,
rectangle.
I love it. I
Uh,
love it.
so what happened? You've alluded to something that happened about a month ago that maybe was an evolution of the ayahuasca process or something like that. What happened?
Yeah, so I did some work with a couple that hold space with 5-MeO, DMT, and Bufo. And so I did a 3 weekend, 1 day each weekend, 3 weeks in a row. I did some work with it,
Okay.
and my ayahuasca journey came back up. It reignited in there, and it mashed together the stuff with my children, myself, what had happened to us, that victim space, and like what I was here for. And it really just brought everything together for me. Again, another like changing moment for me, a lot of realizations. Like I'm in the process of integrating that, but it helped me integrate something from the ayahuasca journey that I think I was struggling with. And it was that connection that my boys and I have, and why we have that connection, and why they came into my life, and why this is the way it is, and that everything's going to be all right. I just remember at one point coming out of it and just looking at the couple that was holding space for me. And I just told them, I was like, I just remember bawling. I was like, thank you. Like I get to show up and be the dad that I wanted to be, and be the husband that I want to be, the friend, the son, but do it on my terms, because I think we get really closed off in the sense that we live a life and it's not necessarily our true self. And I found my true self in there, and because I think like I casted judgment on myself, especially when I had that moment of realization that I was sexually assaulted also. I was like, oh man, this is where it's all come together. Like it's just let me know that all of this process and all of these things that we're going through is all designed in this just beautiful orchestrated way that you can't see until you look back. I mean, that's the beauty of looking back on the past. We can't change it, but now I can look back and I can see all of these lessons and all of these opportunities, and like it's made it to where I don't want to miss any opportunities, man. Like I will give up everything else to be with my family. And whereas before that wasn't it. I needed to be away from it because I didn't know how to show up as a man. I didn't know how to show up as me. I wasn't living the authentic self.
Yeah, talk to me more about that. When you felt like you were, maybe it was just that of not showing up authentically as you. But what I've heard you share several times is like how hard you were on yourself as a dad for not being there
Mm-hmm.
maybe in the way that you wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's maybe a little bit surprising for me because like you lost your dad at the age of 6. So just it's almost like one perspective could be, hey, I'm here. So I'm doing better than what I got as a kid, no matter how I'm
Yeah.
showing up. It's like I'm still present. So
Yeah.
where did you get maybe these ideas of like how you thought you were supposed to be as a dad? Or where did that come from of being hard on yourself, specifically as a father? And maybe I'm kind of selfish here asking this question because I have an
No.
19-month-old daughter. So I
On.
want to hear your perspectives.
Yeah. I will honestly, a big part, and I don't know if Cordy remembers this, man, but me watching you interact with your daughter and just like bringing her into everything that you literally you've made her a part. And man, I was running from something that I didn't realize I was running from something, and I would do these things where I would escape, and I wasn't involved with my family. I was selfishly dismissing myself from them, and they would be by themselves a lot. Like there were moments where I was like, I preferred to be at work because I didn't know how to show up for them. I didn't feel my worth. I didn't love myself enough. And I found that love in my first experience, and then I lost it. It was like taken, I felt like it was taken from me, and it wasn't. It was always there. It was just I wasn't willing to break through that part of myself. And seeing you guys was a big part of that too. Like coming back, like you guys made me super homesick. I remember just crying to Cordy and being like, I'm so homesick. I just want to go home right now. It was like our third day going into ceremony, and I was like, I'm struggling connecting with the medicine, and I know it's all here. And you guys are like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I want to go home. I'm like, I'd been away from my kids on hunting trips a lot longer, and all I wanted to do was go home and be with my family, dude. I just wanted to be with them. I remember when they picked me up at the airport, I just grabbed them all and I just started bawling. We're at the pickup, and I'm just like crying profusely. Um, and it was, man. I just saw how you guys were with your daughter, and you let her be her, and you didn't judge her. You didn't guide and steer her anyway. You let her figure things. You let her stay connected to her intuition. And we get so far away from it because, like, I don't know if you've read the book The Four Agreements, but he really talks about in the beginning of that, like, you have those couple minutes of your life where you're not told to do something, all the way to the point, like, most of the time in the hospital, as soon as the kid's born, they're trying to put the kid on the mom's breast, like, instead of just letting it naturally all come about. Like, and I just watched you guys interact with her and let her go and bring her into that environment, dude, man. I want to take my kids into that environment. That's why I'm so open about all this stuff, because it's not the stigmatism behind it. The bad trip is not a bad trip. It's your life playing out for you. It's just showing you, like, look, it's okay.
Uh, I love that just seeing Sito is such a big part of that for you. She's like
For
a
all of us,
medicine
dude.
baby, dude. Yeah, for
Yeah.
everyone there. And
Yeah.
then, we do our jujitsu retreats. We've got someone in our microdosing program now who he told us how he used to argue with his therapist. He's a Canadian veteran. He would argue with his therapist saying that joy doesn't exist, right? And then he's at our retreat and he sees Sita just running around laughing. And he's like, "Oh, that's what joy is."
That's joy.
And it was
Yeah.
it it like fucked with him for a while because he was like, I thought this didn't exist in the world, and like there
Mm,
it is. So like clearly it does exist. I just haven't had it for the last 45 years,
yeah,
and it's something that he's working on reconnecting to now, which is really beautiful.
it
Yeah,
is.
she teaches the best, man.
She is.
But
She's so
yeah, dude,
awesome.
really, really quickly, I'll share this with you because I know you can appreciate the depth of it, especially because when we were in Peru together, I was asking you a bunch of stuff about
Yeah.
pediatric first aid. And so I learned the basics in PT school, and honestly, I've probably forgotten quite a bit of it. And we had one scare when she first started eating, where obviously we were really attuned to like the choking risk, and I feel like I manifested this happening, which sounds silly, but she was sitting in this high chair and she was strapped into this thing, and I remember thinking like that seems dangerous because if I have to pull her out and do CPR, I'm gonna be fumbling with these buckles, and my fingers are all fucking greasy. And then lo and behold, she starts choking, and I'm like, motherfucker, now I have to fucking unbuckle all this bullshit with my slippery fingers while we're
Yeah.
all freaking out. And it took like 3 back blows, and she was fine that time. She probably wasn't really choking, but I was in my head about it, so I was like super,
Yeah.
waiting for it to happen, basically. And then so Cordy's always a little bit freaked out about her eating. Fast forward, I don't know, she's over a year old at this point. I forget exactly how long ago this was, maybe like 4 months ago. We were eating dinner together and I'm feeding her bits of naan bread, which like Cordy will never let her eat naan bread ever again after this. But I'm feeding her these bits of bread, and I didn't realize this, that she would take another bite before she swallowed her first bite, which is probably pretty
Mm,
standard kid behavior, but I wasn't on the lookout for that. And so she starts like she seems like she's in distress. She coughs up one piece of bread. I'm like, all right, cool. She coughed it up. But that was like the second piece. And then she stops making sound, just full on like silence, scared look on her face, like open
yeah.
mouth, eyes wide, making zero sound whatsoever. And so I pick her up, deliver 5 back blows. Well, actually, I pick her up, look inside her mouth, don't see anything, deliver 5 back blows, hold her up to almost like reassess and look inside her mouth again. No sound, don't see anything in her mouth. She's turning like reddish, purplish. I just remember like her eyes being like so wide. And the kicker to this story is that morning I had attended a CPR refresher course
Oh my
put on
gosh.
by a retired Canadian firefighter who moved down here to Mexico. And this is just kind of what he's actually a pastor, and he just kind of does these courses for free whenever. And that morning, we obviously went through the CPR procedure. And so I remember the back blows. I didn't remember the procedure of like 5 back blows, check the mouth, and then 5 chest compressions. So if I hadn't gone to that course, I probably would have just continued delivering back blows, and Sita
Mhm.
genuinely could have died. But
Yeah.
because I went to that course that morning, I set her down on this bench. I actually used my hands to elevate her chest so that her head tips back a little bit, because that was like another
Mhm.
pro tip that I picked up from that guy.
Yep.
Deliver 5 chest compressions, and I distinctly remember like on number 3, the reality set in of like, oh, she's about to die. Like literally there was zero thought in my mind from like when I saw she was choking up until did the 5 back blows, assess, do the chest compressions. It wasn't until that point that I realized like this is how children die. Like she's about to die. And then I was
Yeah.
like, fuck, there's nothing to fucking do. I'll just continue CPR, I guess. And on the 5th chest compression, she's like made a squeak, right? And then I pick her up and I'm about to go back into back blows, and she starts crying. And
Oh.
so she was fine.
Yeah.
But over a year ago, actually, the day before Sita was born, there was a gas explosion in our neighborhood. It
Hmm.
took EMS like over an hour to get here.
Yeah.
And so and three people died in that event. And so like after that, I've realized like no one is coming, you know. So like
Yeah.
normally a kid starts choking, I would say, Cordy, call 911, but like that's not fucking doing anything here.
Right.
So yeah, I think that fucked
Man.
Cordy up for a while. Um,
Understandable, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's
and
it is
I
it's
kind of
crazy.
joke. I kind of joke because I'm 2 for 2 on saving her from choking, but I'm also 2 for 2 on being the guy feeding her when she started
Feeding
choking.
her. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So Cordy's like, no more. You're done.
yeah, yeah, not ideal.
No,
And
it like those are
it
those are those moments, man. Oof.
yeah. I'm gonna be very interested to see how that shows up in her life because you know obviously she cried like why is dad hitting me? It's scary, that kind of thing. The other day she was eating with our nanny and she I think just like she swallowed wrong, you know, like water goes down the wrong pipe kind of a thing. So she wasn't
Mm.
choking, but she thought she was for a second. And she got really scared and started crying. And I have to imagine it like triggered that memory somewhere
Yeah.
within her that like that happened. So that's why I say like 20 years from now she's going to be drinking ayahuasca and she's going to be purging out that time that she almost died and dad had to save my life. But dude, at least I was there. It's crazy, man.
No, it is, and dude, and those are those things like you said it. I feel like I kind of manifested it. I think like we can something was coming, and that opportunity for you to be there and get a refresher and learn. Because I remember talking to you guys about the refresher. I'm like, yeah, like here's a couple
Mhm.
things you can do, like, and that is like when you said patting the shoulders, getting them up elevated. That's the same thing we would do when we work on kids, in the field. Um,
And so
yeah,
we went back to that guy's class because basically that day Cordy took Sita and I went to this class, and then 2 weeks later we switched. And after that event happened, I texted the guy, and I was like, "Hey, I'm the physical therapist from the class that asked you a million annoying questions that you probably hated," and I told him the whole story, and he was just like, "God is good," and I was like, "Fucking right, yeah."
hell
And
yeah,
then Cordy goes to his class, and at the end he's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm a preacher. In case anyone wants to come check out my service," and he told us about it. And so I was like, "We are obligated to go to this guy's next
yes,
service."
yeah,
So
yeah, no shit,
yeah, it was
man.
crazy, man. Just there are no coincidences. I'm convinced of
No,
that.
there's not. And again, like someday you're gonna look back and it'll be a conversation you have with her about you're gonna tell her this story too, and it's gonna respark things. And it probably hasn't even hit you yet. Like the reality of it, like there's gonna be
Yeah,
something else that's gonna come up with this. Like,
yeah,
and those are those things. Like it's that moment where I think that's what fucked me up the most is like you got to show up right in that moment of her need, and you got to be the dad. You got to be there. And when that happened for me, I didn't get that feeling. And that was like I wanted to handle it the unhealthy way, the way that would have really taken me away from them had it not been for this process. So I have everything to owe, like everything I owe to psychedelics in a way or form. Like I'm the one that has to see it through, and I have to integrate it. And there's a lot of other work that comes after these things, but this is the power of this and what it can take you out of it. Just takes you out of that cycle, and it brings those walls down. And these are the things that we get to work through. And this, like I said, that came for you is those moments. And you're telling me this, and it's not a selfish thing. It's just me thinking. I'm like, I go, man, like that. That feeling to show up, and I feel like I lack that. So that's why, like, I am dedicated to showing up for them. Like I will put everything down. That was one reason. That was one of the beauties of leaving this job. Like and now I get to do what I love to do, man. I work at a ketamine clinic here. I get to help people on their journeys. I do coaching with them, all from my life lessons, the lessons of like being with you guys there and working with other people and stuff. And I get to bring all that stuff home to them and my wife and help see them grow through that process. So like dude, you guys are doing it right. I'll argue with anybody about how you guys are raising her and what you're doing, man. Because like it inspired me to show up the way you guys show up for her and to try to create that life, like to the point where we're talking about moving, like we're going to shift everything up to change the environment so our kids get to experience life a little bit more than what they do now.
well, thank you for that,
Oh,
for your vote of confidence in my parenting. And yeah, tell us some more. Tell us some more about what is going on now. Because you actually said something earlier that like your relationship with your kids has improved dramatically just from being
oh
home
man.
now that you're semi-retired. Tell me
Yep.
about that and tell me about the stuff that you're doing. Because you're someone who's like actually moving the needle on this being adopted and legalized and researched.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
meanwhile, I'm over here just kind of quietly helping people and actually hoping nobody pays too much attention because, like,
Right.
maybe it's not quite legal.
Yeah.
So, what's going on for you these days? What are you up to?
Well, now that I'm retired, man, like even my wife, she's like, man, it's like, and I can feel it. My kids, like one of my twins, him and I, because of who I was, and he has a part of me in it. We were always like this, like from young,
Yeah.
and now he just comes up. I get to show up for him for his sports, and the things that he's interested in. I get to take time. I get to lay with them in their beds at night and tell them how much. And I always told them how much I loved them, but they feel it from me now. Like my kids come up and just hug me. They'll come in from wherever they're at in the house, and that they're leaving the room that we're in. Like they're like, "Dad," and I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "I love you." I'm like, "I love you too, man." Like, and it's the most sincere thing, dude. It makes me fucking emotional every time, like because it was the relationship I always wanted to have with them, and I felt I never had it. And when that thing happened to two of them, it really fucking pulled me away, and it shouldn't have. It should have brought me closer. It brought me closer in one way. It just took me a little while to come around full circle with it. But yeah, man, my wife, like, my she was telling her friend the other day, she was like on her menstrual cycle, and she was like, yeah, I was like trying to start a fight with Mark, and he decided to show up and support me. And she was working out with one of her girlfriends. She goes, what the fuck, you're on your period and he's supporting you? She's like, you need to have him hang out with my husband. But so I'm just showing up different, man, and I feel I want to. I like it's not even a want, it's just I just do it, and it was that part of me. That's who I always was before. But yeah, man, like that relationship's great. Like now we're just figuring out where we go next. Like where's life gonna steer us? What are we gonna do? But right now, I left the department. I had about 3 weeks off, and Chad from Mental Joe, him and I, we still meet. We meet on regular. Him and I have become very close. We've gotten close with his wife and his kids. Our kids play together and stuff now. Um, he kind of helped push me into the men's circle. It was something he wanted to do. So now we're doing a men's circle. Chad helps with this. A lot of people that Chad has had the opportunity to help get connected with you and other people through their healing journeys. Um, he's brought a lot of those guys into our group too. So I've got a lot of people, a lot of guys in this group that come forward and they bring a lot of knowledge and growth in it. So that's been really awesome. I work at this ketamine clinic called Inlighten Wellness. They're actually like keep an eye out in the end of the summer here, probably the fall on Netflix or Amazon Prime already bought their documentary. It's a 6 series episode.
Chad's in
That'll
that,
be,
right?
yep, Chad's one of the main people in it.
Yeah, he was
But
telling
that's
me
the
about it.
clinic I work for, Sandy and all that. I work with a great group of
Cool.
people, man. They've taught me so much. Like I came into this space wanting to learn, and I just felt like it was just sponging and growing. So I was able to bring stuff too. Like when I got out of that, I got connected through some other people in this field, and they asked if I'd work with the Citizens for Psilocybin group. And I made a good friend with that. Him and I met for coffee, and then next thing I know, a month later, him and I are working at state legislative level. Man, we're trying to push stuff through. We secured $2.5 million here in Arizona for Scottsdale Research Institute to go through to help run their lab, to help them run tests on dry psilocybin testing. So there's some of that stuff's coming through right now. I've had the opportunity to go. I was in Austin for this last psychedelic convention. Got to sit with a lot of the top people in the psychedelic world to talk to them about what's going on. I was there with them talking. I was actually in the meeting right before the one that got approved where Ibogaine just got passed in Texas. I got to sit with that group and hear where that's going so I could bring some of that stuff here to hopefully start vending through and get into the state. But just making some of those connections, man, has been great. Like you guys, like I've sent people to you, told them to check you guys out. It's just this group just grows and grows and grows. And that's all I want to be a part of, man. I want to help it on the state. Like there is no reason this stuff should not have its place. I don't think that you should be able to go into a store, grab it, and then walk out the door and go do it. But I think that if you're with the right people that are creating a safe environment for you and it feels right and it feels good, I feel like this is for everybody. I think everybody at some point in their life should experience this because there's something about yourself that you have not seen without you even knowing. Like I see it all day in the ketamine clinic is we put our self protector puts these walls up. We don't see these walls, but these medicines bring these walls down so you can get a peek in there, so those things that bother you that you've suppressed for so long, you can access those, and you can heal yourself in a completely different way. And that not only does it benefit you and make you find the love that you have for yourself that you deserve, but then you get to give it to everybody else, man. I've not had contact and helped somebody through this process and go through this and sit there with them when they're on medicine and just be there and support them and then help them with the integration after this, all of this stuff. Man, it's beautiful to be a part of someone's growth. Just like what a great thing that you and your wife are doing, man. Look how many people you're affecting. And that's not like you said, you got like a group of 40 right now, right? Dude, you got those 40 are going to triple whatever like that. People are going to see that change. They're going to alter them. It's going to start changing people's thought process about this. And that's all I want to do. I just want to be a part of it. I just want people to find their best life, man. We all deserve it. That's why we're here. We're spiritual beings having a human body experience, man. My biggest advice to anybody is like, if you're in public, it doesn't matter who you are or what you do for a living and what you've been through. Like, you are loved. You are extremely loved. You're never alone. You don't need to be alone. You're never alone. There's always someone there. And I'm always open. I don't care if I don't know you, man. You guys can reach out to me after this, but I'm always, just like you guys, I'm always there for people because someone did it for me and it changed my life for the better, man.
I think if I kept asking you questions, I would just start making this podcast worse, bro. Let's wrap it up
We'll
there.
go.
That's a beautiful
We'll
message
go all
to
day.
end on.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love
Thank
it,
you
man.
very much, Mark.
All right, love you, brother.
That's a wrap for this one with my buddy Mark. This one was pretty interesting and pretty impactful for me. As you heard in that episode, there was, I feel like I knew a fair bit about Mark and what he'd been through, considering we led a retreat with him, put him through our program. And it just kind of goes to show that this work is never really finished. At least, definitely not when you think that it is. There's always more and more and more layers to peel back and more things to unpack. So really grateful for Mark to come on here and be so open and honest and vulnerable with everything that he's gone through. And we talked for a fair bit after we hit stop on the recording about some other parts of his story that I related to that I didn't really want to get into on this episode. Maybe we'll save those for something in the future. And there's a chance that Mark will actually come back on here to interview me, which the thought of that actually made me really uncomfortable, which tells me that that's exactly what we do in fact need to do. So hopefully we'll get that scheduled, bring that to you guys pretty soon. In the meantime, I'll put up links to everything that Mark is working on in the episode description here, so you can check him out and get connected with him. He's doing really awesome work out there for all the other firefighters, first responders, and really just everybody in general. Mark's an awesome dude. And I'm really hoping to collaborate with him some more on this project that Cordy and I are working on to bring this kind of healing to all of the active duty guys out there who cannot yet work with plant medicine. So stay tuned for all that. Check out the episode description for everything on Mark. And that's all I got. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, peace out. Hare Krishna.